Okay, so you bench press, you deadlift, you squat, you overhead press, and you row. What other 2 or 3 exercises would be essential to add to your routine? Watch this.
Our first caller is Angus from Australia.
Angus, what's happening?
G'day, guys. How you going?
Good.
What's happening?
Not much. Just here very early in the morning, 3:30. Just wanted to get up and send you guys a question. You have to excuse me. I'm pretty nervous. Feel a bit starstruck.
No worries.
Don't worry, Justin's nervous too.
Yeah. This isn't real anyway. It's all AI.
I sweat a lot.
So yeah, guys, basically my question. So, I train with a very minimalist routine. Pretty much your big 5. I add in dips and pull-ups as well to that. But I know that in the long term, you guys talk about how that can cause joint issues, and I definitely do start to feel that sometimes. So I was wondering if there's like 2 or 3 must-do rotational or lateral movements that you guys would include for someone who does like to keep it very simple, but also wants to get the benefits of those other movements.
Yeah, that's a good question. How
Really
do you
good question.
do you play any sport, or do you do anything aside from the training?
Yeah, so I'm in the army at the moment. We do a lot of different stuff, and it's been quite hard on my body going from doing one thing, which was the way I like to train, to a lot of random stuff. So, and there's been like a bit of adjustment issues in my body as well, like even doing, the weight loaded marching and all that kind of stuff where my body just hasn't been used to it. But I suppose the army does a lot of those different random things that I'm asking my body to do are helping, but just I want to be able to replicate that in the gym as well in order to help support those skill sets.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the issue with avoiding certain fundamental movements, and it doesn't necessarily. The reason why I asked you if you play any sport or do anything else is it doesn't necessarily have to be strength training. If it's complemented by other movements outside of the gym, where you're, doing movements like running laterally and rotating because you're playing sports, then you're probably going to be okay. But here's the issue. The issue is that when your body gets really strong in one plane of movement, you create an imbalance between one way of moving and another way of moving. There's a ratio that seems to be ideal in terms of strength and stability with movements that support other movements. Okay, so think of like a race car. You can have a race car with a lot of horsepower, but if the frame doesn't support the horsepower, now the frame becomes a hindrance and you can start to damage the car. It wouldn't be an issue, though, if the car wasn't too strong for the frame. Okay, does that make sense? So it really has to do a lot with balance. Okay, so now to answer your question, if you want to find exercises that are kind of must, go-tos, I like lateral sled drags. If you don't have a sled, you could do lateral lunges, tube walking. Anything with resistance moving sideways would be just fine. And then for rotation, band chops, cable chops, throwing a medicine ball.
This is where core exercises.
Windmills.
Windmills, I'd love to see. Windmills would be amazing.
Yeah, those are all totally fine. But how often do you do strength training?
Every day.
Okay, so wow, every single day. And then how often do you do exercise with your military?
We usually do 3 sessions a week. The intensity varies. We usually have like a cardio day, a strength day, and then a weight loaded march day, which is kind of a combination of the two, I suppose.
Okay.
But my sessions are short. So I do in the morning, I'll do 2 lifts. Pretty much when I go in, I just like to have that routine, and because our schedule here is so demanding, I only really have time to get in the gym for 15 minutes. So I do kind of like a MAPS 15 kind of thing.
That works.
So another option it would be for us to give you MAPS performance, and you follow the kind of MAPS 15 protocol you're doing, because I don't want to change that. It sounds like that works well with your schedule. I also think that's a good amount of volume for all the other things you're doing. So I wouldn't change choosing 2 exercises. I like that, but maybe pull from MAPS performance, because there's a lot of exercises in there that are unilateral. There's some rotational movements in there. There's some movements that are going to incorporate the things that you're looking for. And you could still kind of follow your concept. I'm a fan of what you're doing. I like that, of going in there and doing 2 good movements. But you can use that program to pull that from. It also has mobility days in there. So let's say and you said the intensity varies with like your training. So let's say it's a really heavy intensity day or week for you, and maybe instead of training 5 or 6 days of lifting heavy that week, you take one of those days and do some mobility movements. That would really complement kind of what you're doing right now and still give you this kind of structure that you currently have. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, and I also think too, like if you're doing just regular overhead pressing or you're doing rows, you can always add that element of rotation there for the shoulders. And I like to do that with kettlebells or with dumbbells. So you can actually kind of incorporate that as another way to add rotation within your pressing and pulling. And then like core for the most part, you're going to be able to get, whether like Sal mentioned, like side chops or, any kind of like landmine rotational movement, for that.
Or windmill.
Windmill is probably going to cover all the bases for that. So, that's just an easy way to like, if I need one exercise specifically to kind of cover, my different like transverse plane, it would be like windmill or one of those core exercises.
I like that. So look at the 3 areas I'm really concerned about, right? Rotational stuff for your core, your shoulders because of the joint, and then also the hips, right? So if there's 3 movements I would want to make sure, or there's 3 movements in there that I want to do. Shoulders, I like an Arnold press, right, or like a kettlebell press, like Justin is saying, that would take care of the shoulders. A windmill would take care of like your core, and then doing something laterally, like either a sled drag laterally or doing 2 blocks
Cossack's
laterally,
Cossack
lunge, like so. Pick one of those, and then you're really hitting it up pretty good. Like if you do that and incorporate those 3 movements with what you're kind of already doing, I think you'd be in a really good position.
Now, to be fair, Angus, your joint pain might have nothing to do with what we're talking about. What do you feel? What kind of joint pain are you having?
They kind of just tend to come and go, and it's. I think it might just be to do with over like the intensity of what I'm doing here. Like, so I recognize that as well. Usually, what will happen is I'll just do something that I've never done before, and then I'll get then it'll get pain, and it just will not. It'll just stick around. So it could be just that I need to put my body into more different planes of movement. That's what I thought, more regularly, and just get my body more comfortable with those things. But yeah, it could just be that.
Is it a particular joint or area? Like, is it normally hip? Is it normally shoulder? Is it normally elbow? Is it normally knee?
Where
Those
do
are
you
the big
feel it
common
the
ones.
most?
Where is it normally?
Be ankles, shoulders,
He's all
knee.
Yeah. I don't think doing more is necessarily the solution. It might be replacing a few movements.
That's exactly what I do.
Or doing less.
Take your protocol, just replace it with the movements that we're saying in there.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think probably has more to do with the military training.
Yeah,
the
you're doing it
intensity
every
of that.
day, right? So
I don't. Yeah, so I again, to be fair, I don't think it's a lack of doing. Like you need to do more. Might need to change a few things. Maybe add some mobility in replace of certain strength training exercises. Maybe add a day off. Might be exactly what your body needs. So we gave you some options. What I don't want you to do, here's what a lot of people do, is just throw it on top of what they're already doing, which might not be. And to be honest, my opinion, I don't think that's gonna. I think that might make things worse. To be honest with you.
Look, I like where I was going with the performance. So I'm gonna have Doug send you MAPS performance. There's things in there like the matrix lunge. Do we have Cossack squats in that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Cossack squats are in there. So what I want you to do is follow your protocol of like your I like the 2 exercises a day. But instead of doing traditional barbell back squats on that day, trade them out for Cossack squats that day. And then instead of doing a barbell overhead press one day,
do Arnold.
do an Arnold press that day. And like, so remove some of these traditional lifts with some of these exercises that incorporate a rotational. And then if you start to feel like your joints are getting inflamed, or if even better, it was an intense day in the military, follow that up with like a mobility day instead of actually doing strength training. So become aware of, okay, that was a pretty intense day I did, and I trained really hard the day before that. You know what? Today when I go to the gym, instead of doing my 2 lifts, I'm going to pull from MAPS Performance and do some of the mobility exercises. That's going to do you really well.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. Really nice to meet you.
All right, you too,
Got it,
Angus.
man. Go
Good
back
luck.
to bed.
Good luck. Yeah, go back to bed.
Yeah, dude.
You got it. Yeah, the thing about joint pain is it could be lack of exercise. It could be too much exercise.
Right,
it could be diet. It could be lack of sleep. Inflammation and pain can come from so many different areas, and so
Instability.
the wrong solution can will often make things a lot worse. So I asked him, where he felt the pain and what was going on, and if he was, because if you do sports and you add strength training, not all sports, right? Some sports are super linear, like you're cycling or running, but if you're doing a sport that's dynamic,
Yeah, soccer,
you're going to
basketball.
cover all the bases
Yeah,
for the most part,
rotating.
So you're going to be okay with the stuff that we talk about. Like when we talk about lack of lateral movement or rotation, we're usually addressing people who only strength train and they really don't do anything else, maybe some like traditional cardio. They don't do anything else, and then the imbalances start to happen. But if you're doing all that other stuff, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I actually think this is just a little bit of overusage. I mean, I think he did the right thing by, I love the MAPS 15 type of protocol, 2 exercises.
Yeah.
I think that the problem is, though, he's just doing everything in the sagittal plane. He's not incorporating. So I think his mindset is in the right place. The prescription, though, is don't add it on top of what you're already doing. Replace it with some of the things you were already doing. And then in addition to that, also become aware of, okay, that was a pretty intense week in the military. I should probably scale back. Instead of doing any strength training today, I'm going to do some mobility work. That will serve him really well.